So this is the last topic, which is going to be a bit theoretically heavy. And so just, and then which is Markov chain Monte Carlo. And once we have this, we complete it, and then it will be more hands-on assignments rather than more theory stuff. So this is up to important sampling we discussed, and then we went for the mid-sem break. Important sampling, it's fine. Here we are going to start the Markov chain Monte Carlo. So Markov chain is a stochastic process in which a future states are independent of the past states, but the current states and the last state will be somewhat correlated, and the current state and the next immediate future state will be somewhat correlated. But the future states and the so it's like yesterday and today somewhat correlated, and today and tomorrow is somewhat correlated, but yesterday and tomorrow they are not correlated. So this is in somewhat, if you have this kind of time series setup, that kind of time series is known as Markov chain.
Sir?
Yeah.
If like today and tomorrow are correlated, and tomorrow and so two random variables, so let's say today and tomorrow are correlated, and tomorrow and day after tomorrow we have three random variables. So these two are correlated. So is it possible that two random variables are correlated and one of those is correlated with another, but so you have 3C2 combinations. So
X can influence Y can influence Z, but X is not influencing Z.
Is it theoretically possible, or
why not?
Okay.
Why not? Why
possible? Right. I thought there would be some. Okay. I'll try to like work it out and then I'll see.
Sir, I think what he's asking is like X equals Y, Y equals Z, so Z equals X on those lines.
No. This is
there's no equal to. The correlation is different.
Yeah. But I just thought.
No. The transitive situation, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's algebraic notion, right? That's algebraic notion that if X is Y, Y is Z, then I will try to show that X is also Z. But
wouldn't you have to say something like X is independent of Z conditional on Y? You would have to do that, right? Like today is independent of the after condition on tomorrow.
I think we will find correlations, but maybe they would be irrelevant and all the information would be contained on X given Y.
Yeah,
we won't need Z maybe. Maybe X given Y equal to X given Y comma Z.
So basically it's a structure that we are assuming, a probabilistic structure we are assuming on a time series, a particular kind of time series data, where we are saying that my xt and xt minus 1 are correlated and rest of the things are not, means xt and xt minus 2 are not correlated. And that is highly, that you can construct something like that.
No, I understand, but I think a better way of putting it would be that p x given xt given xt minus 1 equals p xt given xt minus 1 comma xt minus 2. So that this eliminates the confusion in my mind. So the conditional distribution of xt given xt minus 1 is the same as the conditional distribution of xt given xt minus 1, xt minus 2, xt minus 3, ... all of those.
So that is precisely the thing actually. So let me try to.
Okay. Yeah, I understood.
Hmm. So hmm, hmm. Okay. So I'm still trying to. Screen broadcast. Start the broadcast. Okay. Now, hmm. So expect, yeah, to. This is something I'm trying to say. So technically you have a time series. So y1, y2, y3. There are a lot of feedback news is happening, right?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I think you need to mute your speaker on any one device.
Correct.
Yeah.
Let me see how I can do that. So
Sir, just reduce the volume to 0. I think that should work.
can you hear me now? Now it's better, right?
Yes, sir. It's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I have y1, y2, yt. Okay. This is my time series. Now, what I'm saying that if I am trying to build a model I would like to build the model based on the entire history up to time t minus 1. So, but when I'm saying this, that expected value of yt is given yt minus 1, there are two meanings. One is effectively all the information that you have, the sigma field that gets generated by y1, y2, yt minus 1, that entire thing is effectively information is same as all the information that you have, or the sigma field that you have, is being contained in yt minus 1. So,
Yes, sir.
right. So I really don't worry about yt minus 2 to y1. Up this part of
Right.
the information, I'm not worried about.
So, but
I'm
this does not. Okay, go on.
okay. So I'm just worried about where I was on the last time point, and based on that, I'm going to take a decision. Now, when I'm saying I'm going to take a decision, basically from a so suppose my y t minus 1 is contain two things, theta 1 and theta 2. Okay. So this is theta 1 and this is theta 2. It's a y is you can think of as a vector of two scalars. These are two scalars, and all I'm at time point t minus 1, I'm standing here. And what I'm trying to say, whether I started from here or here or here, I don't care. Somehow I have reached here. Okay. So I really don't care. What I really care, given at this point, where should I move? And that means it's trying to say that, what I'm trying to say that given this given this value, the probability of or density of yt given yt minus 1, if I have this conditional density, maybe that density is somewhere here. This is the density of yt given yt minus 1. The best place to move is wherever is the expected value of yt given yt minus 1. So I would like to move in that direction. Most likely, I would try to go in that direction. So that is the idea here. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So let me, okay. Now,
Sir, just one thing.
Mhm.
So, if information is contained in that single conditional distribution, that doesn't necessarily mean that others are uncorrelated, right? They could be correlated, but it doesn't matter.
It could be, I'm not saying, but
Okay.
here
Yeah.
we are going to create a chain purposefully, which has this property.
Yeah.
We are going to create artificially this chain.
So we will
It's not
ensure
like,
uncorrelatedness. Okay.
I really don't care,
Okay.
even if they're second. I mean, people have, tried that. So people, it's not like people have tried.
So maybe I'm missing some algebraic simple manipulation. I'll do it
No.
and then ask.
See, what I'm trying to say here, my objective is to learn about theta 1, theta 2.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we are trying to do here, we are saying that Markov chain Monte Carlo is going to be a tool. You can create another time series which may be 2-order dependent, 3-order dependent. You can always create that, no problem. But Markov chain Monte Carlo is only 1-order dependent case. Like it only depends on the last time point, and it does not care about the time before that.
Yeah, yeah. Understood, sir. But
Okay.
I was asking something else. I'll ask after the class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, these YIs are sequential, right, sir?
Why is a sequential, right? Why is a sequential? So yi is like, they are coming in sequence, y1, y2, y3 in that way. But when we are doing it, we are only concerned about what was the last value of the y. And based on that, we are taking the decision at this moment. Or given what is the current value y, based on that, we are going to take the value for yt plus 1. That is the idea. Okay. So, and Monte Carlo, what is Monte Carlo? Monte Carlo, there's some basically simulation technique which tries to solve integration. So far, we are trying to solve an integration problem, right? So if I'm trying to solve this h theta times f theta d theta, where f theta is the probability density function, then h theta, what we will do, we will try to simulate values from f theta, plug it in and take the average of that. And we will say I hat is a good approximation of I. That is what we try to do. Now, that's what we're trying to do. But here, so far, what we were trying to say that, okay, we in acceptance rejection sampling, in importance sampling, everywhere we were trying to simulate the theta 1, theta 2 be a sequence of independent and identically distributed random variables from the F. And then we are saying that, okay, take the average, and average will go to my target as m tends to infinity because of the weak law of large number or the law of large number. But independence is going to play a very good role in that argument. But if I am simulating my theta 1, theta 2, theta m in a sequential manner, if I decide with a Markov chain structure, means my theta 2 is going to be dependent on theta 1, theta 3 is going to be dependent on theta 2, theta 4 is going to be dependent on theta 3. If I keep doing that, then effectively I have lost my independence. So can laws of large number kick in? So that's a good argument, and we'll see, the answer is no. At this moment, there is no guarantee that laws of large number will kick in, but there are some other kind of guarantees are available for Markov chain, and we will come to know about that. So what is Markov chain? Markov chain, the basic main property of a Markov chain is your next draw theta t plus 1 is dependent only on the current draw of theta t and not on the past draw. So what does that mean? My theta t plus 1 is given theta t. So this conditional distribution and this like p of theta t plus 1 given theta t minus 1, theta t is same as probability of theta t plus 1 given theta t. So this is a main crux of the Markov chain or Markov property. And this is the thing we are going to use my simulate the thetas. So theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, I'm going to simulate, but I will, every time I will simulate in a sequential manner. Still now we are simulating in a sequential manner, but now what we will do, we will simulate keeping eye on what was my last value at the last iteration, what was the value of theta at the last iteration. Is that clear? This is going to be the fundamental difference between what we are going to do in Markov chain Monte Carlo and what was so far we were doing. If you look into, say, acceptance rejection algorithm, if you go to the, say, one implementation, let's go up and let's carefully look into the implementation of acceptance rejection algorithm. Where is that? Just a minute. Yeah, this was, I think, acceptance rejection algorithm. So here I'm still using a iterative process. I don't need to, but I am still using iterative process. And each of the iteration, none of them are actually depending on what was, or looking at the last iteration, the value of last iteration. Iteration 1 and iteration 2 are completely separate independent process. The value of iteration 2 is not going to affect by the value of iteration 1. This is something we are going to do. We are going to affect in our Markov chain Monte Carlo method, that my value of iteration 2 is going to depend on value of iteration 1. Okay, and this is the main difference. If you understand, then there will be no problem. Okay, so this particular thing, okay, just a minute, let me. Yes, a little, wait a little bit, I'll send you. I just, I want to open another document. Okay, so so I'll share this, probably this chapter with you. I'm writing. Okay. So here is the, let me just. So what happens here is, if you suppose it's a toy problem. I mean, it's a, in a sense, suppose there are only 4 states, okay, where, or the 4 values that theta can take, theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, and theta 4. If the theta is taking the value theta 1 at, sorry, let me put it in this way. At state time point t, time point t is the current time point. At current time point, if the state, the value of theta is theta 1, then it can, what is the probability that it will still take the theta 1 at t plus 1? So that probability, we can write it in this way, suppose. Similarly, given that at time point t, theta can take value theta 1, what is the probability that it can take value theta 2? So that means it will jump from the value theta 1 to theta 2. Okay. Similarly, it can jump to theta 3, it can jump to theta 4. So these are the only, if I say that theta can take only 4 possible values, which it is allows to take only 4 possible values, theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, and theta 4, then these possible values are the only possible values. Then these are the only possible probabilities that with which theta can jump, given that the at time point t, at the current time point, theta is at theta 1. Okay. So these probabilities are known as the transition probabilities. That it is at a particular time point, it is at a particular state, or at a particular value it is taking, which is theta 1. What is the probability it will move to the another value? And what is that probability? That conditional probability. So if I add these row of probability, first row, what will be the value?
One.
Yes, correct. Are all of you with me? Anybody have doubt? So I'm assuming no. Similarly, this is theta 2. If it is theta 2, then that means current position, current value is of the theta is theta 2. Then what is the probability that it will make a jump to theta 1? What is the probability it will stay in the same state, theta 2? What is the probability it will jump to theta 3? What is the probability jump to theta 4? So this is the distribution, conditional probability distribution, given that theta is at theta 2, and it can go all the theta possible values of the thetas, and this is the entire probability distribution. So if I add them up, these rows, so row wise, all these rows will give me, row sum will be 1. And this is called, sometimes called transition matrix, transition probability matrix, or simply transition probability. Okay. Now, what I can do is, so I can start with a distribution. I can start with a particular position, say theta 0, 0, 0 or something. which is pi 0. I can start with a particular distribution, and then if I multiply this so this is the marginal distribution of theta 1 and say theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, theta 4. And if I multiply this with the conditional distribution, that will give me the marginal distribution of the theta 1 at time point 1. Then similarly, once I got this, again, if I multiply it with the transition probability of matrix P, capital P, then I will get the marginal distributions of the theta 2, of the probability distribution of 2 at time point 2. So similarly, if I keep doing it t times, then I'll get the probability distribution at time point t. Is this steps clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Now, what I'm trying to say is, so there are a lot of mathematics. I'm just skipping those math. I'm just giving you basically the results. The result is define a stationary distribution pi. Okay. When I'm saying stationary, it means it's not moving around. It is sitting in one place. It's a stationary distribution. To be pi to be some distribution capital pi. There is the CDF maybe, and such that pi is equal to pi capital times pi capital P. So I am basically what I'm trying to say that I'm just making the distinction. I'm making the distinction between Markov chain and transition matrix blur by just taking the capital P as if capital P, the transition matrix, I'm representing it as if that my Markov chain. So the result is, if the posterior distribution is a proper posterior distribution, proper probability distribution, actually it has nothing to do with the posterior. It is if you have any proper probability distribution, then Markov chain of MC algorithm will typically, if you will converge to the P theta given Y regardless of our starting point. So this is what typical, and I'll talk about it. So there is something called a fundamental theorem of Markov chain. What is that says that if Markov chain P has three properties: irreducible, aperiodic, and positive recurrent. I'll talk about it a little later. What does it mean that irreducible, aperiodic, positive recurrent? Let's assume that I have a Markov chain which satisfies three properties. Then it has a unique stationary distribution pi. So what does it mean? It means basically if I have a pi is my if I can suppose pi is my posterior distribution. Okay. If pi is my posterior distribution and I want to simulate from the pi, what I can do, I can come up with a Markov chain. I can come up with a Markov chain P with respect to pi such that eventually all I have to ensure in that Markov chain that that Markov chain is irreducible, aperiodic, and positive recurrent, these three conditions, then it guarantees that that Markov chain will have a unique stationary distribution, which is pi. So this is the fundamental theorem of Markov chain, and that is what we are going to use, exploit rather, in the Markov chain Monte Carlo. So, and then there is something called ergodic theorem. What it says that if theta 1, theta 2, theta t be t values from Markov chain, that is again that three conditions, aperiodic, reducible, positive, recurrent, then it tells that the chain is ergodic and expected value of g theta is less than infinity. Then with probability 1, this will converge to this integration. So basically, you don't have to worry about this. Even if these theta 1, theta 2, theta t, these simulated values are coming from a Markov chain, they have an interdependency. You can still plug these, but all you are doing that this theta 1, theta 2, theta t are coming from a Markov chain, but that Markov chain was made with respect to pi theta, the stationary distribution. Then expected value of g theta, if it exists, then their sample average will converge to my integration g theta, pi theta, d theta. So that is, these are the, one is the fundamental theorem of Markov chain tells me that the Markov chain will converge to, this will have a unique stationary distribution pi is if, so that we can make the pi to be posterior distribution. And then the ergodic theorem gives me the guarantee that even if my thetas are not independent random draws, still the sample average will converge to the integration, the quantity that I'm looking for, the target quantity. So that is, this ergodic theorem is the Markov chain analog of law of large number. And is a very, very strong theorem actually, because you don't need any more a independent condition. So that is a huge actually gain over law of large number. Then question is, what does it mean by aperiodic, reducible, positive, recurrent? I'll come to that again later, but before that, I just want to tell you what it actually means is Markov chain Monte Carlo. So here is a small demo that I have created, I have tried to create of how MCMC works. So here is a red color density, red color distribution. Suppose this is my target density from where I want to simulate the data. So, and it's a stationary densities. When I'm saying it is stationary, it means it is not moving around. The x-axis is theta 1. Can you see? Let me just make it a little bigger. Yeah. So x-axis is theta 1 and y-axis is theta 2. And this is my target density. When I'm saying it is stationary, it means it literally stationary. It doesn't move around. It's just sitting there. It is fixed. But it is a proper probability distribution, and I want to simulate from that probability distribution. So what I do, I start with the initial proposal density. Okay. Now this is my 0th iteration. Now from 0th iteration, what happens in the first iteration, a Markov chain propose, okay, you simulate, given the last 0th iteration, you simulate another data and a value, and with respect to the new value, you come up with a proposed updated proposal density. And then which, given this second move, second value, this is now my current updated proposal density, we make another third iteration, which gives me this density. Then, given the third density, I get the fourth density. And then eventually Markov chain gives me, if I keep doing it, eventually Markov chain reaches to the target density. And once it reaches it, that means the Markov chain has converges to the stationary density, and it sticks there, and it keeps, simulating from that density only. So still I'm simulating from the Markov chain, but it is coming from this area only. So it will mimic the target density. So, and Markov chain tells me I can start from here, 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 doesn't matter. I can start from here, 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 anywhere. Eventually it will find its way and it will converge to my target stationary density. In a true sense, it's a really intelligent thing, because most of the time we have no clue where actually the density is, particularly in the high dimension. In the high dimension, we have no clue where the density is most of the time, because these are the parameters. Remember, these are now the data. So most of the time we have no clue where actually the value of the density, where the mean of this density is, and all these things. So how we need something like that, which will figure out itself and converge itself to a target density, figure out its own path. Yeah.
Sir, empirically, till what dimensions have we observed Markov chain Monte Carlo simulation to be working nicely?
Empirically, I have worked up to 20-25 dimension aram se.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And I have seen people have reported even higher dimension.
Yes, sir.
And there is now a new thing has come up, which is called quantum Monte Carlo. Okay.
Okay.
And that beast even go really high dimension.
Is it based on like sampling from atoms and their spins and
That kind of ideas they have used.
yeah. So it's like using real world for probability simulation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the quantum Monte Carlo. See, Markov chain Monte Carlo is something where physicists are working for a long time. Okay.
Yeah.
And recently, when people after the advent of computers, now statisticians are also working for long. I mean, last 30 years, definitely more than 30 years. Statisticians are, so now statistician and physicists, particularly physicists who works in the statistical mechanics domain, and for whom solving an integration problem is extremely important, and particularly high dimension integration problem is very important for them. I mean, Markov chain Monte Carlo or or quantum Monte Carlo is a way. See, if you are not interested in solving the problem using Markov chain using integration, that is perfectly fine. You can, in machine learning, typical practice domain people, they want to solve it as an optimization problem. So basically, they just only want to estimate the posterior mode, and they're happy with it. They are not interested in. But if you just want to estimate, then you can solve it as an optimization problem.
Right.
But if you want a confidence interval or something like that, you have to resort to the Monte Carlo kind of methods, some way or other. I mean, either this kind of Monte Carlo, or there's some other kind of like something called bootstrap Monte Carlo and stuff like that are also available. But you have to resort to some kind of Monte Carlo methods. You cannot completely avoid if you are interested in the margin of error.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is what exactly how the MCMC works. This is the main idea, so that it will start from anywhere, and then it will update the proposal density. It will keep updating, and eventually the fundamental theorem of Monte Carlo ensures that it will find its path, and this Markov chain, so basically this chain will converge its way. When I'm saying Markov chain, it's people think that, it's chain of values. It's not chain of values. It's a chain of probability distribution. So here is my chain of probability distribution. It will find its way to converge to the target stationary distribution, which is sitting in there. It is not going anywhere. And that is why it's called stationary distribution. Okay. A dynamic distribution is when the thing is moving around here and there. That is a dynamic distribution. When the distribution's main parameters, mean, covariance, variance, correlation, they are all constant, then it will be sitting in one place. It will be called stationary distribution. Okay. But if you have a stationary distribution, then, and if you create a Markov chain with respect to the stationary distribution, even if you don't know the main properties of the properties, when I'm saying properties, the mean, variance of the, each dimensions, the Markov chain will figure out its way to converge. This chain of the distribution will eventually converge to this distribution. And it will keep generating samples. Once it converges, it will keep generating samples. Okay. So this is the main crux here. So here I have simulated, I'll talk about this. Actually, what time is it? It's almost done. So I'll not go into the theory part today. Maybe another half day will be enough, or maybe. Okay. Rather, I would like to tell you how this, so I have taken this CAPM model. You remember that we have tried to model this, portfolio return as a function of alpha plus beta times market return plus epsilon. And then we are saying that, okay, epsilon follow Laplace distribution with 0 lambda. I said, okay, fine. On alpha and beta, I put a Cauchy distribution with 0, 1, beta Cauchy distribution with 0, 1, and a lambda half Cauchy distribution with 0, 1. Okay. Then I did this basic data preparation. Here I have written the log likelihood function. Here I have written a half Cauchy, and then I've written the log prior. And then here is, I've written a log posterior. Log posterior is likelihood plus log likelihood plus the log prior. So log likelihood plus log prior. So that gives me the log posterior. So when I'm writing log likelihood plus log prior, that means I have only the thing which is only the numerator. Denominator, I have no idea. Remember that. Then, so what I have done, I said, okay, here is my proposal function. I will always need a proposal function. So I create a proposal function here, and then I said, okay, here is my metropolis. I'm going to run my metropolis. So what I am doing is every time, and we will talk about it, this Metropolis Hastings algorithm next day, Gibbs sampler and Metropolis Hastings thing. So I'm saying that, okay, you simulate from the proposal function and put it into the with proposal and with respect to the last value of the chain, and then, or the current value of the chain. And based on that, you take a random number, and either you take the proposal number or you take the last value. If you think the proposal value is not a good one, then you stick to the chain. And then I ran it. So here is the thing. So remember that, and I ran it purposefully. What I have done, I knew that alpha is close to 0 and beta is close to 1. Okay. we, from our prior knowledge, we know that alpha is very close to, the value of alpha is close to 0 and value of beta is very close to 1. So, but I had no idea about the value of lambda here, but that is okay. So what I did, I purposefully, I have taken the starting value of alpha 1 far from 0, starting value of beta 0, and starting value, which is value of beta, we know it's close to 1, and then lambda value is 1. I just make an educated guess. Okay, theek hai. Let's take 1 and see what happens. And I did not many thousand simulation. So what happened? So here are the 1,000 simulations. Can you see the values? Okay, let me just, here is the 1,000 iteration. Each iteration, it started with 1. And very fast it came down to 0. By 100 it reaches to 0. Once it reaches to 0, it stays around 0. Similarly with beta, the true value is near 1. So but I gave a starting value 0, far from I knew. So it started with 0, quickly made some jumps, and by 200 values it reaches near 1, because here is 0.8, 1 will be near about here. It reaches 1, near 1, and then it stayed here. So by 200 iteration, it converged. And then that means I have a 800 iteration, and same happened with the lambda. So it started with 1, and by 100th iteration, it nearly close to 0.5 and stayed there. So by 200 iteration, definitely it has converged. Okay. And so it shows that how it has, once it converged it to the target stationary distribution, it just stayed there, and it is a Markov chain. Remember that it is a dependent chain. It's a dependent values. Each values are a little bit dependent, but still my fundamental theorem of Markov chain gives me this guarantee that it will come down to, or it will converge to the target value. Then it will stay there. Once it reaches there, it is just keep simulating from there only, and it will not move around. It will not come out of it. And then ergodic theorem tells me that if I just take these 800 values and take the average of them, that will give me a nice final result. So that's what it is all about. So now we are left with two algorithm of Markov chain Monte Carlo, how it works. That is, one is Gibbs sampler, another is the Metropolis Hastings sampler. So I hope by next Monday, I will be able to finish the Metropolis Hastings and the Gibbs sampler. And then my plan is to go more on the hands-on rather than theory anymore. So I'll give you more and more hands-on assignments, and I'll give you more on, we will do in class and as well as out of the class, we will do more hands-on. Okay. So
Yes, sir.
anybody have any question? So let me just stop the recording.